So this story started out life as a Russian folk tale and has been transformed. There was once a king who had two sons, an heir and a spare. So he was set. He had nothing to worry about. His kingdom was secure. And yet he did worry, for he also had a daughter. And though she was lovely, she refused to marry. No matter who the king got to come, what princes or lords offered for her hand, she refused. She had no interest in marrying. And this was a problem. For what good was a princess unless she married and brought in riches and lands and political allies? And so the king was obsessed with trying to figure out how to get his daughter married. The princess, of course, since she had no interest in getting married, was not worried about this at all. And one morning, at breakfast, as the king sat there worrying about how he could marry off his daughter, the princess had other things on her mind. Father, you'll never believe it. I had the most amazing dream last night. I dreamed of a flying ship. Can you imagine that? Just like a ship on the sea, except it could rise up in the air and it flew. It was amazing. It was marvelous. Oh, what I would do to have a flying ship. I would do anything to have such a magnificent flying ship. And that gave her father an idea. And so he went to his advisors and they crafted a message. They sent it out into the kingdom that anyone who could build and bring a flying ship to the castle would have the princess's hand in marriage. And the word went out. Now, as it happened, there was a widow woman who had two sons, fine, upstanding young men, ambitious. One of them was well on the way to becoming a doctor, and the other a lawyer. She was so proud of them. But then the proclamation came by, and they decided they would rather try their luck at marrying the princess. And so they dropped all their plans and they told their mother they were going to go out and find a way to build a flying ship and win their fortune that way. And their mother was delighted. She thought this was a grand plan, even though clearly only one of them would actually be able to marry the princess if they even managed to find a way of building a flying ship. But she gave them each a warm loaf of bread, a round of cheese, and her blessing, and sent them on their way. But as it happened, that widow woman also had a daughter, a very problematic daughter, because she had no interest in getting married, and she just made things. She was a crafter and an inventor and a thinker. She loved to make and design things, but she would not marry. And really, what use was a daughter unless she were to marry and bring more lands and money and well, grandchildren into the household? But when the daughter heard of this proclamation, a flying ship for the princess? Oh, a flying ship! Why, she could just practically see it in her mind. Wouldn't that be a marvelous thing, a flying ship? And so she went to her mother. She said, I want to go out too. I really think I could do it. I think I could build a flying ship. And her mother laughed. She says, that proclamation isn't for you. They don't want you to build a flying ship. They're looking for a young man to marry the princess. Oh, princess doesn't want to get married. Everybody knows that. She wants a flying ship. And I think I could make it. Well, her mother was not much pleased or much in favor of this plan, but her daughter would not give up. She wanted to make that ship. Oh, she could see it so clearly in her mind. So finally, just to get her out of her hair, her mother gave her, well, some dry crusts of bread and a bottle of water and, well, no blessing at all, but sent her on her way. Well, the young woman had her mind so filled with this idea of the flying ship. Her head was just bursting with thoughts and ideas. She could just imagine every detail that she wasn't paying much attention to where her feet were taking her. And she almost knocked into an old woman who was sitting by the side of the road. "Oh, excuse me, I beg your pardon. Oh, where are you going, dearie? You seem to have your head in the clouds." "Oh, well, I do rather. I am dreaming of a flying ship. I'm going to make a flying ship and take it to the princess." "Oh, are you, dear? And do you know how to make a flying ship?" Well, no, not yet, but I'm sure I can figure it out. I mean, I can just see it. I can just see every bit. And oh, wouldn't it be marvelous? Wouldn't it be the most wonderful thing in the world to have a flying ship? Ah, mm, I see how it is. Well, why don't you come sit down by me then, dear? And if you have a bit of food to spare, perhaps we could have a little chat and have something to eat while we think about this. And so the young woman sat beside the old woman and she pulled out her packet of food that her mother had given her. She was a little embarrassed to unwrap it. Dry crusts wasn't much to share. But to her surprise, when she opened the napkin, there were two fine loaves of bread and two rounds of cheese, and she shared them with the old woman, and as they ate and they talked, she shared all of her vision of the flying ship. The old woman said, "All right now, dear, I can see that you have the gift and you will make it happen. So here's what you must do to get a flying ship. You must go into these woods and you must find just the right tree, tall and strong, and you will know when you see it that it's the right one. And when you find it, you must put your arms around the trunk, lay your head upon it, and you must ask it if it will be a flying ship. And you will know if it answers yea or nay. And if it answers yea, then you must take my little hatchet here and make a great cut in the tree, just one though, one great cut, and then fall upon the ground. Put your forehead to the earth and keep in your mind every detail, every bit of your vision of that flying ship. And you must not get up again until you are roused up." And so the young woman did exactly that. And when she found just the right tree in the woods, she asked and it agreed. And she took that little hatchet, gave a great cut into the wood. It hardly made a dent, but it stuck there. and threw herself down on the ground, her forehead to the earth, and in her mind, she dreamed of every single detail of that flying ship. And she was lost in that dream until she was awakened by a breeze ruffling through her hair and the sound of creaking wood and snapping sails. And she looked up, and there was a flying ship in the place of that tree, and it was magnificent. It was exactly as she had dreamed it. And she climbed up on board, and it responded to her just the way she had imagined, and it lifted up off the ground and flew up into the air. And she set out towards the king's castle. But she had not gone far when she saw down below on a hill a woman lying on the ground, similarly to the way she had just been lying on the ground dreaming of that ship. Only this woman's ear was to the ground, and she called out, "Ahoy there! Are you all right?" And the woman sat up, said, "Oh, yes, yes, I'm fine. You see, I can hear everything in the entire world. Every conversation, every baby cry, every dropped pail of milk, I can hear everything. And now and again, just to rest, have a little peace, I like to sit down and put my ear against the earth and listen to our heartbeat and be at peace for a while." Oh, that's a fine gift indeed. I'm taking this flying ship to the princess, for she has dreamed of it and always wanted it. I'm sure she would be interested in your fine gift as a listener. Would you like to travel with me? And the listener agreed and came up upon the ship, and the two women shared their stories. And the captain of that ship continued on sailing through the sky until she looked down again, and she saw upon the road a woman walking laboriously, for she had upon her feet iron shoes. And so she was walking slowly, and it seemed kind of painfully. And she called out, "Ahoy, are you all right? Can we give you a lift?" "Oh, no. Uh, I'm walking with these shoes just to slow me down, you see, for I am so fleet of foot. If I do not have these iron shoes on, I can go around the world in 2 seconds. One step, two, and there I'm gone and back again. I wear these shoes just to slow me down a bit, so, I can see where I'm at for a moment." "Oh, well, that's a fine gift indeed. Would you like to come with us? We're taking the flying ship to the princess. I'm sure she'd be pleased to hear of someone so fleet of foot." And Fleet of Foot agreed and came up upon the ship. And the women talked and sang together as they carried on their journey until the captain looked down again, because she could see a woman just standing there, looking out into the distance. But it didn't seem like anything really was there out in the distance. Hello? Ahoy, are you all right? Are you lost?" "Oh, no, I'm fine, dear. I have far sight, you see. I can see everything all around the world. And today, oh, beyond the king's castle, there, on the mountain, in a tree, there's an eagle's nest. The eagles are just hatching right now, the little eagles. Oh, it's such a wonderful sight." My, you can see that? I can barely even see the mountain from here. Far sight. Would you like to join this company of women? We are sailing this flying ship to the princess, for she has desired always to have this flying ship. I'm sure she'd love you to join us as well. And Far Sight agreed and joined the company of women. And they sailed on until the captain looked down again, and she saw a woman on the road walking with a stove on her back. And the captain called out, "Ahoy, are you all right? Are you moving? Are you misplaced? Do you need a place to stay?" And the woman said, "Oh, no, I'm traveling on purpose with this stove because you see, I have a gift with this stove. Every time I cook and bake, no matter when I put just one loaf of bread in, it becomes multitudes, and I can feed so many people until they are all satisfied. And it seemed such a waste to stay at home. I'm going out into the world to make sure all who are hungry are fed." "Oh, that is amazing. Will you come with us? We're traveling to the princess with this flying ship." And provider agreed. And she came up on the ship and started to bake and to cook. And the woman ate and told stories and sang songs. And the flying ship continued on its way until the captain looked down again. And there was a woman in an arid plain, and she had a dowsing stick in her hand, and it was clearly finding water. But more than that, as she watched, she saw that the woman had the water just bubble straight up out of the earth in a fountain and was taking her refreshment from it. And she called out, the captain did, "Ahoy! What is that you're doing there? It looks like you not only find water, but you can bring it up out of the earth." "Oh, yes, indeed. Indeed," Owser said, "I can do that, and I can set it back down again. It's a handy trick to be able to bring up water when you need it and let it go back to the earth again. It's always sweet water." "Indeed, that sounds a wonderful a wonderful gift indeed. Would you like to join me in our company of women? We're on the way to the princess with our flying ship." And Dowser agreed and joined the women, and the ship sailed on. Until again the captain looked down, and she saw a woman with a bundle of sticks on her back. And she was heading towards the woods, which seemed odd since she had such a bundle of sticks on her back already. She called down, "Ahoy! Where are you going with all those sticks? It seems like you have plenty already." "Oh, these aren't any ordinary sticks," she said. "These, when I throw them down upon the ground, become protectors. Soldiers of a sort, but like tree people that protect any from harm." "Oh, that's a fine thing indeed. I'm sure the princess would be interested in that. We are traveling there, this company of women, to bring this flying ship to her." And Protector joined them as well. And they sailed until again the captain looked down. And there on the road was a woman. And she was dancing a jig, and there was music in the air, and there were leaves swirling all about her in the dance. And it was a marvelous thing to watch. And the captain called out and said, "Ahoy there, where's that music coming from?" And the woman stopped. She had been whistling. She had been making the music herself and raising up the wind. "I'm a wind whistler. I can rise up the wind from east, north, west, and south." And I was just amusing myself. Sometimes I like to just whistle up a little bit of a wind and get the leaves dancing and jig along. That sounds like a fine thing. Will you come with us and join this company of women? We're going to see the princess and give her the flying ship. And she too joined the company of women. And the flying ship sailed all the way with this company of women to the king's castle. And the captain lowered down the ship and docked it in the courtyard on the cobblestones. And the princess sitting in her window, gazing out while she read her books, saw the flying ship arrive and immediately ran down to the ship and boarded and came to know the women, hearing their stories, looking at all of the ship, and was amazed. As for the king, well, he was at his dinner. And he heard all this commotion outside, but he did not like to be disturbed at his dinner. So he wasn't paying it much attention until a servant came running into the dining room where he was eating. He said, Your Majesty, there's a flying ship. There's a flying ship out there. Oh, somebody did it. Wonderful, wonderful. Get the princess. Let's get the priest. Let's get a marriage going right here. And where's the captain? Let me see him. Uh, well, actually, it's not a man. It's a woman. A woman? What do you mean it's a woman? Oh, well, it's actually a whole ship of women, and they brought the ship. Well, that's ridiculous. It's supposed to be a man. I said it was supposed to be a man who's supposed to bring a flying ship for my daughter to marry her. Your Majesty, actually, we said anyone who made a flying ship. Well, anyone is supposed to mean any man, right? Of course, obviously. Yes, perhaps, but that's not what the proclamation said, Your Majesty. Oh dear, now what am I going to do? I can't marry my daughter off to a boatload of women. Well, Your Majesty, there's a time-honored tradition, when an unsuitable suitor comes of setting an impossible task. And then you can get out of it, you see, because they won't be able to do it. Very well. Well, what should the task be then? And they thought about it, and finally the advisor said, "Well, this is just a legend. So let's just it's probably not even real, so they won't be able to do it. Let's have them bring the water of life and the water of death." And so the servant was sent out to the ship. But of course, Listener had heard this entire conversation already, and the princess had already gathered the women together and decided, well, of course, we must get Farsight to look out. She knew the legends, and she knew where the legends said the water of life and the water of death was, and she told Farsight, and Farsight looked out until she could see that landscape. And then Dowser got on the back, a fleet of foot, and they sent off in no time at all. And Dowser had the water of life and the water of death bubble out of the earth and bottled each one, labeling them each clearly. And then they came back. And they were back again already by the time the servant got down to the ship to tell them of the task. And they gave the bottles to the servant. Who came back to the king, who was trying to enjoy his dinner again, and was most displeased to find that the task had, well, already been done before he'd even had a chance to get to the next entree. Well, how do we know they are the water of life and water of death? I mean, just because they're labeled. Don't worry, Your Majesty," said the advisor. This is easy. We'll just bring a chicken in. And so a chicken was brought in. And the advisor took the water of death and sprinkled it on the chicken, and it fell dead to the ground. "Oh, well, I guess that's the water of death, all right." And then he took the water of life and he sprinkled it on the chicken, and it sprung back up again alive as it had ever been before. "Well, I guess that is the water of life. Those are fine prizes, Your Majesty. Fine indeed. Well, yes, but they're not supposed to have been able to do that impossible task. Now what am I going to do?" "Oh, well, Your Majesty, don't worry. Time-honored tradition and all. 3 impossible tasks. 3, you can take the best of all or the worst of all, and just one. That's easy to do. It's a fluke. Let's get another task. What shall it be?" And the king, who still really wanted to eat his dinner in peace, thought, "Ah, yes, that's it. All those peasants, they're complaining about the poor harvest and they don't have enough for the taxes and all. And well, how about a feast? A feast that they must create a feast and feed everyone in the kingdom who is hungry until they are satisfied." And so the servant was dispatched. But of course, Listener had already heard all of this, and they were prepared. The princess knew indeed that the kingdom was suffering and there were many who were hungry, and she at once dispatched fleet of foot to take a proclamation all throughout the kingdom to all who were hungry to come to the castle to be fed. And fleet of foot would take those who could not make it themselves and went back and forth bringing people, while provider baked and cooked and made so much food, and dowser went out in the courtyard and doused up in fountains of good, clean, sweet water, and the people were all there eating and drinking and praising the princess by the time the servant came out to tell them of the next task. And so he went back to the king to say, "They're being fed. Everyone's happy." "Oh, well, forget this," said the king. "That's too impossible task. We're not doing any more. Call out the army. Get rid of that rabble." And so the army was called. But of course, Listener had already heard this. And the princess had gathered the women together, and they'd made their plan. And Protector, with the help of Wind Whistler, threw up her bundle of sticks, and Wind Whistler brought the wind to take each of those sticks all around, not just the ship, but all the people who were gathered there, to protect them in a great circle. And when those sticks hit the ground, they became tree people. Trees, but their roots were unrooted. And as the soldiers came and started sending out their arrows, Wind Whistler whistled up a wind to blow them all away before they could hit anyone. And the tree people, the protectors, came on their rooty toes, tiptoeing forward, and opened their great branches, taking up branch loads of soldiers in their arms, giving them a little shake so that all their weapons fell down, and then hugged them to their trunks. And on those rooty toes, They tiptoed out of the castle courtyard, out into the kingdom, out into the great open places, until each tree found the place it wished to sink its rooty toes. And while they were traveling, Wind Whistler was whistling a lullaby, and the wind was gently rocking the tree branches back and forth as the women sang the lullaby as well, and all the soldiers fell asleep in the arms of the trees until they were rooted, and they let the soldiers gently down on the ground. And when they awoke, they had no more interest in fighting for a king, and they went off to find other ways to make their way in the world. And as for the princess and her captain and her company of women, well, they just rose up in the air from the courtyard, the princess waving goodbye to the king and her people. As the ship sailed away with the company of women, searching for adventure and others that they might help wherever they should sail. And I believe they might still be sailing there now.